I switched over to an arts degree. And
Okay.
so I think it was after I switched that I did Psychology 101.
Right.
I was considering, first of all, the subjects that I could work with. I was working in a government department. I was working in the Department of Social Security back before Centrelink was a thing. I went out to people's homes and caught them if they weren't doing the right thing.
They wouldn't have liked you.
Oh, well, you know, it was a progression of a career of sorts, which didn't last for an awfully long time, but it was one that had a lot of lessons in it for me for life. But one of the things that I did do was align my subjects with what I could study, and so psychology was in alignment.
Right.
And it was fascinating.
Yeah, and I would imagine it would be fascinating. But I want to just backtrack a moment, because you said you were doing music.
Yes.
What stopped you from doing the music? What was it?
Well, okay, so I was singing as an opera singer. So I spent 10 years singing opera.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was my first real learning of music. When I was 15, I started taking lessons, and I was at Macrob at the time.
Right.
McRobertson Girls High School. And then I did singing through high school and finished reasonably well. I didn't, however, have any theory behind me.
Right.
So I had the first year of university where we were writing violin concertos, and I'd done summer school from grade 1 to grade 6.
Right.
In music theory. And I don't know if you have ever considered music theory and how hard it is.
It'd be pretty intense.
Yeah, going from, you know, learning what a semibreve was to writing a 4-part Palestrina mass and so forth, it was a big ask. And I did manage to get through some of the subjects, but theory I had to do twice. And so, you know, there was just a number of things in that process where I had not quite the experience that I wanted.
How was it doing it? How was it repeating it twice? Just the theory part of it. Was it easier the second time around, or was it just as hard?
It was actually fine. You know, it was just a matter of doing the work, and I knew what the work was, and I understood more because I'd gone through to the end of the year and then I'd done it again. I think one of the things in singing for me has always been persistence is important.
Yes.
You know, I've been singing for a long time. I'm now singing with a blues band.
Oh, I love blues.
Yeah, it's great fun. I wrote a song for one of the chord structures yesterday, actually, so it's been an exciting transition for me.
Fantastic. Maybe we'll get you to sing a song later in the show.
Well, singing live to camera without backing is kind of tricky.
I
can sing a little word or two.
Yes,
a word or two I'll do.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's not a problem.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So how many years did you do of music at uni then?
Okay, so I studied opera for a couple of years, and then I got a scholarship the first year. The second year I didn't do well in voice, and that was probably the last straw, and there wasn't really a lot of logic to it.
Okay.
I spent 3 years learning one aria, and I'd done that successfully at the end of the second year, but it wasn't really recognised. So
why
it's
was
hard to
that?
know.
The expectations of the people that were teaching? What was it that wasn't really logical?
Oh, honestly, I feel like there was a political slant. So the teacher that I was working with had brought in 3 students, and they'd chosen to keep that teacher instead of bringing a staff teacher on.
Right.
And she was doing well with her students.
Okay.
And so I think they wanted to make an example of her so that she didn't become staff.
Okay.
And I was kind of the example. And it sounds a little bit poor me, but I have to say, you know, I got a scholarship first year. And so I went from getting a scholarship first year to doing harder work and doing an effective job. And I didn't fail in terms of delivering any of the material in the exam, but I didn't pass.
Okay. So how did that make you feel? What was the feeling inside you? Because you'd worked so hard to get the results, and then you didn't pass. That doesn't mean anything these days. If you didn't pass, it doesn't matter, because what are you doing now? You are actually composing, writing, singing, and doing the things that you're passionate about. So the results of yesteryear, although maybe not good then, don't carry on through your life.
No, they don't, and I think that's been a recurring theme for me, that I can carry through for people when they are having a tough time. You know, often I'm talking to people when their business isn't going well. They need a copywriter because whatever they're doing isn't working.
Yes.
You know, and so being able to talk to them about the things that I've gone through is definitely a measure of the ability to transfer that resilience and to talk about the lessons I've had is valuable. In opera, I sang opera for 10 years altogether. So I sang from about 15 to 25, and the first 2 years of uni I did that, and then I went on and chose a different teacher after a while, you know, working privately with the same opera teacher.
What made you choose opera in the first place? What was it that took you into that arena of opera?
Well, it wasn't really about choice. So I indicated that, you know, when I was a little kid, I really liked singing.
Yes.
I didn't have the opportunity to pursue that outside of school. Okay. And I didn't have the opportunity to pursue it inside school until I was 15.
Right.
So the first time I was ever offered lessons of any kind that I could take up was when I was being offered, and opera was what they taught. So I just took up whatever I could get, you know. So
yes.
I'd never had any formal lessons prior to that, and being an opera singer, while not my ideal at all, allowed me to learn how to sing.
Yes.
So I just
yes.
wanted that, you know.
So you got the grassroots and the basis of singing, and the growth that you had through that period of time would have been amazing.
Yes, look, I think it's an interesting thing, the voice.
It
is.
The
voice is not something that you have a lot of control over in terms of developmental pace. And what I discovered for myself was I was taught opera as a soprano. However, I'm a mezzo.
And didn't they pick that up?
Well, it's not until 35 that you become a mezzo.
Really?
Yeah. So
okay.
your voice really hits the ground running when you're 35.
Well, my voice never hit any ground.
Well, it's just one of those things. But I was competing with real sopranos in high school, and they had these beautiful ranges, and they could sing right up into the high E, and they were singing with this perfect vibrato, and they could, you know, and it was easy for them, and I was struggling to get the high B and the high C. And I was only going down to middle C at that time. And what I didn't know was I had a complete other octave below that
really?
Wasn't being used.
And nobody asked or got you to show that or bring it out of you.
Well, I think it's the quality of the voice that I was heard as at the time.
Right.
So at the time I had this beautiful...
But they didn't test you?
Tiny little lyric soprano voice.
But they didn't test you?
Well, they couldn't, you know, I guess it wasn't known. It wasn't known because it wasn't really there.
Yeah.
So, you know, the way I speak now probably is a lot more open, and it's obviously developed through my years of singing that I speak like this.
Yes.
But when I was in high school, you know, I would sing, bright eyes burning like fire. Probably higher than that.
Right.
You know, so I had this tiny little airy voice, and that's what they went on, you know. I can't blame them because that's what I knew too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's all about that learning and development, isn't it? Over a long period of time. I mean, my mother had the most amazing singing voice. I never got it.
Oh.
And I'm so jealous.
Wouldn't you hate that?
I do hate it.
Yeah.
And it was an opera voice that she had.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. But I never got it, and I'm really disappointed because I'd love to be able to sing.
Yeah, I think one of the misconceptions is that singing is a gift, and that, you know, you're lucky if you have it. It's not usually the case that you just fall into it and you're brilliant. A lot of people have come to me when they've had a voice that was okay, or they didn't feel that they could sing that well, and I've been able to show them that there's something that they're not doing, or that they could be doing better, and that would allow them to move into a space where their voice works.
Yes. Yes.
And that's actually part of what people do when they're teaching singing. And I don't teach a lot of singing these days because I find it too frustrating for myself. I don't have the patience to be a singing teacher. I just don't have it.
You don't. How much have you taught singing? Did you teach a few years, or? Look,
I didn't teach a lot of singing. I've taught, you know, people to prepare for auditions, or prepare for an album launch, or prepare for you know, to when they're already familiar with the songs, but they're not singing them in the way that they want, like they're Frank Sinatra, and they need to know how to fix those problems that they have with their articulation and their breath control to get more of an authentic sound. So I might do that.
Right.
However, in the small pieces of time where I was teaching kids ongoing, I just was getting driven mad. I couldn't do it.
Yes, yeah. I could understand that too. Yeah. Did they ever do their practice?
Probably not as much as they could have, but then, you know, I'm a singer and I'm dedicated to it, and they weren't. And
yes,
you can't really blame them. But any teachers out there who teach anyone anything, I just applaud you, because it's such a hard thing to do. You know, it is a real skill, and it's a dedication of the heart. It really is.
Well, I'm an ex-teacher, so I understand.
You know what I'm saying.
I understand where you're coming from, particularly kids that don't want to be there.
Oh yeah.
And they have to be, and all that sort of thing. And I suppose kids, as they're growing up, even though they have a singing voice, they're not really mature enough to understand that, you know, it is something that they could grow and develop in later years. They're not mature enough to think about that, are they?
I think it's the personality of the person. I mean, I'm thinking of my son here. So he has a beautiful singing voice. He's actually very talented, and he'll sing along with me to the radio, and he can sing in tune and sounds great. However, learning a song, it's not something he's all that keen on yet.
Yes.
And he's definitely not keen on lessons.
Yes. Definitely
not. No way at all. And yet, you know, if you see him on stage, you're like, give the kid a drama class, give him a singing lesson, give him a dance class, because he's got the moves and he can sing, and he's really quite good when he gets into the mood, but he's just not in the mood all the time.
No, and I think that it's interesting because kids usually aren't... Do you want to shut that door for me? The kids usually aren't, you know, in the mood for... discipline, I suppose, is it? Discipline for doing the things that us as parents would like them to do. and that,
yes.
you know.
Well, you know, I love my children. I love the way that they're so resilient. I love the way that they're so strong-willed.
Love a strong-willed child.
And I really appreciate that they have that capability, because I know that's resilience.
Absolutely.
You know, I know. However, some days when they're arguing with you about, you know, a slice of bread, you're just like, come on,
seriously,
give me a break.
Yeah, seriously, let's get real here, will you? Yeah. It's interesting how their resilience, their determination, and their persistence. If they want something, they will push you to the point of you almost giving in, or, you know, saying, okay, just, you can have it because I've heard enough. And they will go on and on and on. Whereas when we get older as adults, we don't persist as much as we could do when we want something. And I think that, you know, I look at me now being on radio, and it's been a passion of mine for many, many years, and it's taken me a long time to develop the, can I say, the courage?
Yeah.
To be here.
It is courage. And, you know, I mean, we're both sitting here talking away live. It's not always going to come out perfectly, and you can't control it. We're live.
What's perfect anyway? I mean, who wants to be perfect? I'm not perfect, and never professed to be.
I was very keen to be perfect for quite a long time. I've given it up
for
Lent, but no, I was keen. You know, I'm very particular, and you know, being in copywriting, I guess that's a skill that serves me well, because you do want to be detail oriented, and you want to make sure you don't have spelling and grammatical errors in your copy. That is important. However, it can be overdone to the nth degree.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that looking at perfection and getting something done, which is right, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it can be almost there, and you just let it go, because if you work to be perfect, you'd never get anything done. It just wouldn't happen half the time.
I think that's definitely a cause of things in my life sometimes, if not anyone else's.
I think our expectations sometimes, as you say, you want to be perfect, you want things to be perfect, but it doesn't happen like that. So accepting, not accepting second rate, but accepting it and saying, look, I'm just going to do this now and see what happens. And then you can grow and you can build on it and perfect it even more. So it gets better all the time. It's not perfect, but it gets better all the time.
Yeah.
And you're making headroads. But we have to go for another break, Emma.
Okay.
We've got...
See you soon.
Yeah, we'll be back in a moment.
Your insurance. Call into the Mentone East Community Bank branch of the Bendigo Bank for a free insurance quote.